I haven't forgot about this playlist, but I just haven't had much time. But let's get back into my personal vlogs. Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And it's appropriate that I'll be wearing my Calgary Stampeders Grey Cup Champions merchandise for this personal vlog, because for personal vlog number 102, I'm going to call this one My Trip to Edmonton Always Involve ... As you know, I'm a proud Calgarian and proud Calgary sports fan, and I've lived in Calgary and Alberta all my life. However, it's not very often that I actually go to Edmonton, and it's also not very often that I go to Edmonton just recreationally, just for pleasure trips. That's why I always have to put the always involved ... I'm going to say my first ever trip to Edmonton did not happen until 2001. Yes, been in Alberta all my life. Lived in Alberta and Calgary all my life. But it wasn't until 2001, when I was just about to turn 19, that I made my first ever trip to Edmonton. I know there was plans, I think I remember, for a family vacation in 1994 that we were going to head up to West Edmonton Mall for the weekend, but that didn't fall through. I also remember that year, that was the year when we had a crazy Border Collie Dave, where we didn't have a summer holiday because he didn't trust to leave Dave alone or have someone to watch him, considering he barely got along with us. So we didn't have a vacation that year, and at that time we gave him away. You can see my other first vlog, number 20, I believe, where I talked about why Border Collies are my favorite dog breed despite that. But it wasn't until 2001 that I made my first ever trip to Edmonton, and that was for a bowling tournament, because I used to bowl in the YBC, and the fact that I made it to the provincials in the 4 Steps to Stardom, and it was up in Edmonton. I know my first visit to Edmonton was going to the Bonnie Doon Bowling Centre. Stayed in the south part of the city, and I was thinking, ew, it is right. And Calgary definitely looked like a much better city. It felt like, Edmonton was 30 years behind Calgary. Turns out it looked. But anyway, that was my first trip in 2001. It was also very interesting that I think the gods knew I was in Edmonton, because I was bowling in the Bonnie Doon Centre, and we had a blackout, and we were delayed for a couple hours. And then also I just saw how the River Valley carved out the city a lot more, where you got the south part, the River Valley, and then you got downtown, and we had the medal ceremony. I knew we were going to win a medal, but we all go to the ceremony. That was in the convention center. That was also built up on the hill. So that was my first trip to Edmonton. It definitely made me love Calgary a lot more. And then there was a couple other times I actually had gone, for just a trip actually. That didn't involve, but the first one you could say always involved some kind of competition, where I was hoping I was going to win representing Calgary. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And then after that, I didn't go to Edmonton again until 2007, which the next trip was, being that I went to SAIT. Well, I graduated from SAIT, but then I worked as a minor official, for 7 seasons. After going to SAIT, you could see number 91 on why the SAIT Trojans will always be my college team. But one thing that happened was we had great men's hockey teams at the time. So in 2007, there was a fan bus that we went up to Edmonton, and definitely picked up some very interesting bus stories. When I was, still in my mid-20s, still kind of that last hurrah, you still pick up those weird bus stories and all that. That might be another video for another time. But it was, we were playing the Nate Ooks, St. Trojans Nate Ooks, so of course that always started what my first trip to Edmonton, or my trip to Edmonton always has to involve, was, going to the hockey finals, head up to Edmonton, to hopefully watch the Calgary team beat the Edmonton team. That's where that started. And I remember in 2007, it was a best of 5. We won it in 5 games, but it worked out that both Calgary, or Nate, and SAIT, they won 1 game at home and 1 game on the road. I remember the game 2, we had to win that to not go down 2-0. We won that in overtime. And then game 4, we had a chance to bring it home. We lost it at home, but then we had game 5 at home, and we won it at home. But, that's kind of started that. And in 2008, we were playing Grant McEwen, and same thing, coming from Calgary, going to Edmonton to hopefully watch the Calgary team beat the Edmonton team. In between, there was a couple times I actually went to Edmonton for, not to ultimately watch a game, where I hope to watch the Calgary team win, if they're playing Edmonton or not, where I got to see the city, including the mall, which I would say is a little overrated. That's big. That's about it. It's big and overrated. And there's a reason why it's called the West Edmonton Mall. Because it's in the west part of the city. I know, but it's very, very far west, where it's practically far away from everything else that you possibly want to see and do in Edmonton. I mean, when I usually going to go, it's usually on the central, downtown, or east side, where all the, sports relics are. Now it's just Commonwealth, just north of downtown. Of course, the Northlands and Rexall Place, or now whatever you call that building now, is just sitting there near the Coliseum Inn, near Wayne Gretzky Drive. What did that guy do to get a street named after him? I'm just being sarcastic, I know, but that is what's there now. But after that period from 7, 8, and 9, we're at a couple, collegiate bus trips going up to Edmonton for the men's hockey finals, and a couple actual trips where we actually got to see the city. And another thing I guess I forgot to mention is the Matart Conservatory. It's another thing to look out for. It's those 4 glass pyramids, but after that, it didn't ramp up until starting in 2014. I guess they also throw in 2007. That's when I went to my first Labor Day rematch, back when the game was still on Friday, where I won a radio contest to go up to Edmonton, and the host name actually was Mike Richards. Mike Richards in the morning on the Fan 960. He definitely had a party bus, and there was some booze and goodies, and met some people on that, and that was definitely one experience for my first Labor Day rematch. And yes, we won in Commonwealth, and I definitely got my first experience of high-fiving Stampeder fans in Commonwealth. That was definitely great. But now let's fast forward to 2014, and then when the Labor Day rematch, moved to Saturday night, which makes it a lot easier for me to plan a trip. Kind of is an annual trip now, where I only seem to go up to Edmonton now just for the Labor Day rematch. And now I went in 14, we won. 15, we lost, but I picked somewhere else to sit, and in retrospect, it'll be a good thing, because there was just an overhang at Commonwealth where it was raining in that game. But I've also figured out where I need to sit, between sections W and X, close to the center, because then that's where you see the Stampeders coming out, where you can kind of shield yourself a little. But once again, it's always a trip going up to watch hopefully the Calgary team win, beat Edmonton. And then I said 16, that was a crazy Labor Day rematch I won. I didn't go in the rematch in 2017, but I went to the game later in the year, anticipating a better, bigger game, and we lost that one. But looking back, I wish I would have went to that Labor Day rematch, because it definitely was a cliffhanger for an end. That we won, but I actually watched it at home. But in 2018, that's where I got my ultimate experience that definitely justifies always my trip to Edmonton. Always has to involve. I mean, the Labor Day rematch definitely was an offensive shootout that we lost, but it went on a cliffhanger. But in 2018, that's when I got the ultimate experience, because Edmonton was hosting the Grey Cup that year. The 106th Grey Cup, may I add, where Calgary was in the Grey Cup. We were in the Grey Cup for 3 straight years in the top team in the league, but we were on the wrong end of it the previous 2 years under heartbreaking fashion. But ultimately, the Calgary Stampeders won the Grey Cup. Definitely got to say it was my sweetest Grey Cup victory. As I mentioned, if you look at the end of Season 1 of my Calgary Stampeders this month, which always justifies that when I do go up to Edmonton, it always has to involve eventually going to a game where ultimately it's hopefully to watch the Calgary team beat the Edmonton team, or whoever Calgary has to be playing. In case of the Grey Cup, Calgary was not playing Edmonton, because Edmonton was the host of the Grey Cup. But it still was a very, very sweet win. Being in Edmonton, there were still a lot of fans that said anyone but Calgary. I always say the Battle of Alberta. I always figure that here. But I thought, well, we just hate Edmonton. That's it. And then I go up there and realize, oh gee, they hit us just as much up there. What? But that was definitely a very, very sweet win. Especially with all the display graphics where you saw at Commonwealth Stadium, which to me was always going to be enemy territory. But it just felt like that day when we won, we briefly owned it. Especially with all the graphics. That said Calgary Stampeders, Grey Cup champions. And then, the Calgary Stampeders were the home team. And there was actually a lot of red in the stands. Cheering Go Stamps Go at Commonwealth. And the Stampeders were using the Eskimos. At the time now they're called the Elks. The Eskimos locker room. And definitely it was probably sweet for the Calgary Stampeders. It felt like sweet victory in the locker room. And of course, going back to a couple more Labor Day rematch games. 2019, and then we didn't have a season in 2020, and then this past year. That was definitely a sweet return to Commonwealth with the win, and had to deal with one fan. It was kind of hilarious that he actually almost looked like that equivalent to that Jets Fire, hat guy at Eccles, and I know with the last visit when I was in Edmonton, he sat a few rows behind me, and he always told me to sit down when we scored, and then we scored a touchdown, and then I was celebrating. I was like, where was he? And then a couple minutes later, I was like, oh, now you show up when we scored another field goal. And I said, where were you when you scored the touchdown? But it was all good. But it all gets back to what I always have to say. My trip to Edmonton always has to involve going to a game where Calgary's playing, where I hope to watch Calgary win. And I'm going to say I don't think I'm ever going to top the Grey Cup in 2018, the 106th Grey Cup, where I watched the Calgary Stampeders winning the Grey Cup. The only other thing that coming close for hockey, of course, there was still that potential in 2020 that the Calgary Flames could have potentially won the Stanley Cup in Edmonton, and that would have been one heck of a story, but that didn't happen. Unfortunately, it was Tampa Bay, so I guess in some way both Alberta teams have to suffer the wrath of the Tampa Bay Lightning winning the Stanley Cup, although it still hurt more for Calgary, I would have to say, than Edmonton. It was just how it was set up with the bubble model during the pandemic. But I have not yet gone to a hockey game other than the college level with the St. Trojans on the road, how they played the Nate Ooks, or the Grant MacEwan Griffins at the Grant MacEwan University. I still yet to go to a Oilers game on the road, or Oil Kings on the road. But maybe one year Edmonton will host the Memorial Cup, and maybe the Calgary Hitmen will be in the Memorial Cup that year, and the Calgary Hitmen would win that. That would be just as sweet if that happened. But of course, that'd just be fitting, right? That's what I always say. My trip to Edmonton always has to involve the ... Let's fill that in with I have to go to eventually, in that trip has to involve me going to a game where I hope to watch the Calgary team win. It's always sweet if it's against Edmonton, or even it's a big tournament for an even bigger prize. So anyway, that is my personal vlog for this 102nd version of my personal vlog. So anyways, I want to say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, Stampeders. We were champions in Edmonton, at least in 2018 in their house, and that was sweet. As I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, recap games, stories, but I also do a variety of non-sports content, which I was able to squeeze some time in to put in yet another personal vlog. I also do attempt to call me, and I do share my experience on the road or sport event, or let's say the Grey Cup. There is a video on there that showed the big screen that said Calgary Stampeders Grey Cup champions at Commonwealth. Boy, that was sweet. Before I start gloating too much, well, the Edmonton Eskimos won the Grey Cup twice in my house at McMahon Stadium in 1975 and 1993. So we deserve one in their house, also say, and then vlogging on the go. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, you know what you do, just make sure you hit like and subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below. And also I have my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts, where I put my short form content on there to use that format on YouTube. Let's say, for example, with a Calgary Stampeders game this season in 2021, I started doing a post-game short where I talk about what happened in the game. Hopefully maybe we'll turn things around and I'll recap winning the Grey Cup. I can dream, right? At least I can still dream. Anyway, so I say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.